Hello and welcome to episode 6 of my Git By Example series. If you've missed any of the previous episodes and you want to get caught up, check out this playlist linked right up here. So today we're going to continue our discussion of branches by covering the rebase strategy for merging. But first I'm going to finish up the merge from last time because I realized I didn't touch any of the conflicts in the fake file. So here last time we just accepted the current changes, I believe. So that essentially just put the ones from master in. But now we can look at some of the other options. So really what these shortcuts here are doing from VS Code is just editing this text. So if we want to do the equivalent of accept both changes, what that's essentially going to do is it's going to do exactly what it sounds like, accept the changes from both. So we can go ahead and just delete the text on these lines. And this is what accepting both of the changes would look like. You can do whatever you want in terms of resolving these merge errors or these merge conflicts, and it will work. So as you saw there, it just adds text. You could even skip it like I did, and then you'll have that Git annotation stuff left in your code. But here, now that we have that, we can just add a commit that says like finish last merge or something. Probably the correct way to do that would be to undo the last, I'm going to show you how to do that. So if we wanted to instead do something like this, we could just git reset to head tilde1. And then that is going to do that. And then now if we git log, then we're going to see that currently we are, no, it's not going to be tilde1, so it's going to be git reset head tilde1 again now, and then git log. And then now you will see that we are at conflict text to fake from master. So then now what we can do is we can git commit -am and just say merge in, conflict branch. And then now if we git log, we will see that now we are currently at merge in conflict branch, which is going to have both of our merges done. So if you forget to do something like that, you can always just reset. I could have just done head tilde2 right there to start with, and that would have worked better. I just didn't realize where it was. And that is the way that you should deal with sort of making mistakes and forgetting to include things in commits. So now that we are done with that, we can move on to actually talking about rebasing. So in the last episode, we discussed branches and the first way to integrate changes between branches, which was merging. So today we are going to discuss rebasing, which is another method of integration. So if you think back to how merging works, specifically the cases where we had diverging history, so we had two different branches that were further along than their common ancestor, but were different, then you'll remember that the recursive strategy works by making a merge commit that integrates the changes from both of the branches that are being merged and applies them to a common ancestor. But rebasing, on the other hand, will rewind to the common ancestor on the branch that's being rebased onto, read all of the differences in each subsequent commit, and then apply each of those changes onto that branch. So in practice, you would execute this by switching to the thing you want to rebase onto. So let's just quickly again make diverging history. So what we're going to do here is let's just do that here. We'll say in this file we edited the fake.md, so we're currently on master. This is a change to be rebased from master. I cannot type today. Okay, so now that we did that, first let's just git branch another thing called like rebase example. So if you remember that, that will just create the branch. So now we can git commit -am, and we'll just say add change in master to be rebased. And then now let's git switch onto, what did I call it? Rebase example. And now that we are on rebase example, you'll see we don't have that change from master anymore. So let's say here, let's just say this change was introduced by rebase example. I know I spelled that wrong, but whatever. So now that we have that, we'll go ahead and make a commit here as well. So we'll just git commit -am, and we'll say here, add change from rebase example. So now that we have that done, we can move on to how we actually rebase in practice. So what we're going to do here, we're going to switch onto the branch that we want to rebase onto and then run git rebase on the other branch. So we're going to do this by, we want to be on rebase example because this is the branch where we want to do our rebasing. And then here we're just going to git rebase master. And then now it's applying add change from rebase example by first rewinding doing that. So we have this change right here. And if we take a look in fake, then we see our horribly mangled text that we have from master as well. And if we run git log now, then we're going to see that we have this change here from master, add change in master to be rebased, is now on our git log for our rebase example branch as well. So now that we have that, you'll notice that now our rebase branch, our rebase example branch is strictly further ahead than our master branch, so we can use the fast forward strategy. So now that we do that, we can just go ahead and git switch, I cannot type today. We can just git switch back over to master, and then we can just git merge rebase example. And you'll see here that it's able to use the fast forward strategy because it's just applying a commit that was further ahead. So if you had the same sort of issue as before, then you would have had to have a separate merge commit there, which can look a little bit messier and sort of harder to understand. So rebasing is a really powerful and interesting tool, and it allows you to do a lot of interesting things that straight up merging won't let you do without some trouble. For example, integrating changes from a branch that's based off of a branch that is based off of master directly into master without merging the intermediate branch. I know that was a mouthful, but don't worry about it. So rebasing may, from what we've seen here, just seem like the perfect tool to use for all of your merges, but you do have to be careful with it. And there's a reason that most of the work you do should be integrated with merges rather than rebasing most of the time. So since rebasing works by reading the differences introduced by different commits and then creating commits based off of them, it essentially abandons the existing commits entirely and creates new ones that are similar. So because of this, we can think of a scenario where rebasing will be incredibly annoying and actually break a lot of stuff. So let's say that you just pushed some commits to a repository, and then other people working on the same project did more work based off of the commits that you made. So now if you rewrite those commits by rebasing somewhere and then pushing them again, the work that your collaborators did will have to then be remerged on top of the commits that you just rewrote, and then you'll have to repull their updated changes, which may conflict with other things, and it can get really messy really fast. And if you rebase changes that things were already based off of, then everyone's going to get mad at you really quickly because it can create a huge mess that is going to take actual time and thinking to sort of fix. So there is a way to deal with some of these troubles right off the bat. So if you do end up rebasing changes and you have work based off of them, then you are going to have to tell all of your teammates to pull your new changes with git pull -- rebase, which will go ahead and deal with all of those rebasing errors. But if they don't run that and they do a regular git pull, then things are going to be really bad and you could end up losing work. So that is why you have to be super careful with rebasing. But now that we've tackled both rebasing and merging, we get to the central question, which is which one should you use? So in most basic scenarios that can be accomplished, they can accomplish basically the same outcome in your code, but your history will look different. So this leads us to a question of really philosophy rather than technology. So the question of philosophy here is it treats down to how you are going to treat your repository. So if you view it as a historical record of what actually happened in your development cycle, then you're going to want to rely a lot more strongly on merges, which may look messier down the line because you might have complicated merge commits and patches and things like that, but they're more accurate to your actual development cycle. They tell the exact story of what happened when you were writing the code and making all those changes. But you may also want to just view your repository as sort of a cleaned up timeline of how your project ended up being made, not how it was worked on. So in that case, it doesn't make sense to hold on to all that messy overhead of merge commits and things like that because those have nothing to do with the code you actually wrote. That's just sort of administrative stuff that was introduced by Git. So if you do that, you may want to rebase and clean up your commits to provide a clearer story of the development cycle, just in terms of what features were added and when and things like that. So in that case, you may even want to go beyond just rebasing and use tools like Git filter repo, which I will add to the link bank, which will clean up your code and things like that even further. So both of these approaches definitely have their merits, and it's really up to you to decide what the ideology of your project will be. Personally, I believe that both of these tools have their place in development, and I use a hybrid approach, which is very simple to follow. And that's if I have local changes, I rebase to clean them up before I push them to a remote, so that the things that I'm adding to a remote repository are all going to be nicely clean and linear, just based off of rebases. But if I've already pushed a change to a remote repository, I will never ever rebase it unless there is a very specific reason. For example, there's like an entire testing framework or something like that is one thing I had to deal with for one project, and I had to get everyone to rebase on a certain branch because there were a few of us working on a certain feature. But again, that is a very specific case, and most of the time I will never rebase a change that has already been pushed. So that it's really up to you. Once you do that, it's going to be a lot cleaner. So we have covered pretty much all of the Git tools from the command line that I think you're going to need to work on projects with Git. At this point, you have pretty much every tool at your disposal, and you should be able to do really anything you think of. So in the next episode, we're going to shift our focus back to GitHub, and we're going to look at the specific workflows and tools that are on GitHub, which are crucial to the modern development environment, especially when either working with a team or on open source projects. So that is going to be it for today. We have a few more episodes to go, but at this point, you really do know all of the tools that you need to know to work with Git. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and get subscribed to me so you don't miss any of the future episodes, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.